Bright Tuty. Every student matters.
Hello, dear students. Welcome to another lecture. So, in this lecture, we are going to learn about the different types of adjective clauses. Now, I'm sure you must have seen the videos for the previous chapters of your grammar topics as well. So, we have learned about the noun clauses when the noun clause takes the position of a subject, verb, for object, preposition, and everything. In this chapter, we shall be learning about the adjective clauses. That is, that adjective, that clause which describes something. This is something that we've learned about in adjective clauses. A clause which describes something is an adjective clause. Right? Let us learn more about the same. An adjective clause does the work of an adjective because it is describing. It qualifies a noun or a pronoun in the principal clause. This is what we've learned. It is going to qualify, it is going to describe, it is going to tell us more about a noun or a pronoun in the principal clause. Now, in the following examples that we are going to read, you have an adjective and in the other one you have an adjective clause. Just read the sentences now. She is a lazy girl. How has the girl been described? Lazy. Adjective. She is a girl who is lazy. How has the girl she been described? Who is lazy. This is clearly an adjective clause because here the description is given with the help of a group of words, and here the description is given only using one single word. Look at the second example now. It is a beautiful place for the tourists. How has the place been described? Beautiful. It is a place where the tourists come to enjoy scenic beauty. How has the place been described here? Where the tourists come to enjoy scenic beauty. Both the sentences we are describing it. In first sentence, we described it using a word, adjective. In the second sentence, we described it using a group of words, a clause, therefore an adjective clause. Let us look at the third sentence. We have enough funds to start the new project. How have I described my funds? Enough. So, adjective. We have funds which would be enough to start the new project. So, how am I describing my funds in the second sentence? Which would be enough to start the new project. So, here it is an adjective clause. So, in all the three sets of examples that we've read, in the first example, the first sentence, we described my noun or my pronoun using just one single word, which was an adjective. And in the second sentence, I described my noun or a pronoun using a group of words, which was a clause. So, an adjective. Now, it is easy to make a sentence having an adjective clause if you remember the following rule. So, it will be very easy for you to make a sentence using an adjective clause if you remember the following sentences. First, the adjective clause will either begin with a relative pronoun or it will begin with relative adverb. What are the relative pronouns? Who, whom, whose, which, that, or what. These are what? These are relative pronouns. Who, whom, whose, which, that, what. These are relative pronouns. And what are my relative adverbs? When, where, why, and how. These are my relative adverbs. So my adjective clause will either begin with a relative pronoun, that is who, whom, whose, which, that, or what, or will begin with a relative adverb, that is when, where, how, and why. And is put after the noun or the pronoun which it is qualifying or which it is referring to. Position we know, it will be placed after the noun or the pronoun. And we know it is to begin with either a relative pronoun or a relative adverb. Now look at the examples where my adjective clauses are introduced by relative pronouns. We love those who help us. Who do we love? Who help us. Those who help us. Those whom the God love die young. Is beginning with whom? This is the girl whose mother died recently. Beginning with whose? Relative pronoun. The moment which is lost forever. What am I describing? The moment, my noun, beginning with the relative pronoun. So the moment which is lost forever. All that glitters is not gold. So that glitters is not gold, beginning with that. So these were the examples of how I described a noun or a pronoun at the beginning of a sentence using a clause that began with a relative pronoun. Okay? Let us look at the other examples where I am describing a noun or a pronoun using relative adverbs. For example, I do not know the time when Rajdhani Express arrives. So it is beginning with relative adverbs. Tell me the office where she works. Relative adverb. I do not know the reasons why she misbehaved with me. This is the way how you can do this sum. So, relative adverbs like when, where, how, and why. If my adjective clause is beginning with that is also acceptable. That is one way. And the other way of qualifying a noun or a pronoun is when my adjective clause is beginning with a relative. Okay. So these were the two different types of sentences that you can frame using an adjective clause. Now, there are a few sentences in which the relative pronoun or the relative adverb which introduces my adjective clause is omitted. Omitted is not there. For example, here is the watch you wanted. What do you think is missing? Here is the watch that you want. That relative pronoun should have been there. But even if I don't write that, I think that is clearly understood that here is the watch you want. Similarly, look at the second sentence. He is the man I can trust. What is missing? He is the man whom I can trust. But even if I don't write whom, I am sure the sentence is making complete sense in itself and is very well understood. Look at the next sentence. The money you gave me was spent. So the money you gave me or the money which you gave me was spent. Even if I don't write which, my sentence is completely understood. The reason I have come is to insult you. The reason why I have come is to insult you. So you see, there are a few sentences in which we can omit the usage of a relative pronoun or a relative adverb. Now, an adjective clause can also be introduced by using as and but when they are relative pronouns. Only when they are relative pronouns can I replace my relative pronouns, or can I introduce my adjective clause using as and but? In order to understand this, you have to first learn what are the relative pronouns and what are the relative adverbs. The simplest way I will tell you, the adverbs, remember the adverbs, and whatever are not the adverbs are your pronouns. For example, when, what, where, how. These are my 4 relative adverbs. And whatever are left are my relative pronouns. Clear? This is the same book as I use. What do you think as is used in place of that? This is the same book that I use, but in place of that, what have I used? As. There was no one but wept at the sad tale of this suffering. There was no one who wept at the sad tale of the suffering. So, there are a few sentences in which the relative pronouns can be replaced with as or but. Also, sometimes the clause is broken in 2 parts to bring the adjective clause just after the subject main clause. There are sentences in which we break the clause, the main clause, the principal clause in 2 parts, so that my adjective clause can be shifted in such a way that it takes the position after the noun. For example, the prisoner who was has now been caught. Absconding means who had run away. This sentence could have been, the prisoner has now been caught who was absconding. Even if I write this sentence, it is totally correct. What have I done? I have broken my principal clause in 2 parts so that my adjective clause can be placed immediately after my noun clause. Okay, after the main noun. Second sentence, the time when the train leaves is not known. The sentence could have been, the time is not known when the train leaves. But rather than writing the time is not known when the train leaves, how has the sentence been written? The main clause has been divided into 2 parts. The time when the train leaves is not known. And why was it done? So that my adjective clause comes immediately after my noun. Okay? Okay. Now the adjective clause describes, what does the adjective clause describes? The subject of the principal clause. For example, a man who drives a vehicle is called a driver. What is my adjective clause in this sentence? Who drives a vehicle, right? And what is my adjective clause describing in the sentence? The subject, a man. Or the adjective clause can describe the object of the principal clause. For example, we found the dog which had lost. What is the adjective clause? Which we had lost. And what are we describing which we had lost? The dog, which is the object of the principal clause. So my adjective clause can be used to either describe the subject of the principal clause or the object of the principal clause. So my dear students, what have we learned about the adjective clauses? First, we know that adjective clause means a clause which is used for describing a noun or a pronoun. Okay. Now, adjective clauses can begin with either a relative pronoun or it can begin with a relative adverb. What are my relative adverbs? When, where, how, and why. And whatever are the rest of the questions that we have, which, who, whom, that, all these are my relative pronouns. Okay. If my sentence, if my adjective clause is beginning with a relative pronoun, I can replace it with as and but. Also, at times we break our main clause in two parts so that I can shift my adjective clause immediately after the noun that it is describing. Also, adjective clause can either describe the subject of the main clause or it can describe the object of the main clause. Okay, dear students, let us now look at the exercises in order to understand them better. So, again, we have 20 sentences in which we have to pick out the adjective clause and say which noun or pronoun in the principal clause they are describing or qualifying. So we have 20 sentences. I'll do the first 10 for you so that you are able to understand and do the rest of them better. They never fail who die a noble cause. What is my adjective clause? Who die a noble cause. And who is or what is my adjective clause describing? This is my pronoun that my adjective clause is describing. Second sentence. God helps those who help themselves. My adjective clause, who help themselves. Now, who is this adjective clause describing? Those people who help themselves, God helps those. So, this is again a pronoun that my principal clause. This pronoun serves as an object in the principal clause. What is the subject? God. This is the object. So, those is the object of the principal clause which my adjective clause is describing. Uneasy lies the head that wears a crown. Uneasy lies the head. If you wear a crown on a head, it makes you feel very uneasy. What is my adjective clause? That wears a crown. And what are we describing? The head. So this is the noun that my adjective clause describes. People who live in glass houses should not throw stones. You can easily see my main clause is people should not throw stones who live in the glass houses. But I have shifted my adjective clause immediately next to my noun that it is describing. So my noun is people. He laughs best who laughs last. Adjective clause, who laughs last. And who is this who which is being described? He, which is my pronoun. Servants that are honest are trusted. Now, what is my adjective clause? That are honest. Again, this main clause, servants are trusted that are honest. This was my main clause. But my adjective clause has been shifted next to my noun in the principal clause and my noun is servants. So all I know is this. What is my adjective clause? All I know. This is the description which is being given. And what is being described? This, which is the pronoun which is being described with my adjective clause. Okay. Next sentence. Just a second. Eat all you can. What is my adjective clause? All you can. And what is it describing? It is describing the word. Whatever you can, just eat that. I hate such liars as you are. Adjective clause, as you are. Here, as is replacing a relative pronoun. And what is this as you are describing? Lions. Who do you hate? The lions. SARS is a disease for which there is no remedy. So SARS is a disease for which there is no remedy. So which there is no remedy is my adjective clause. And what is it describing? SARS, which is a disease. Okay. Now the next question is you have to fill in the blanks with the suitable adjective clauses. Now again, there are multiple ways in which you can fill in the blanks as per your own convenience. I shall do the first 5 with you. Tell me the school which or that has a swimming pool. Okay. I have begun my adjective clause with a relative pronoun. He returned me the book that he borrowed from me. Yes. This is the boy who helped me. This is the house where my grandparents live. This is the house. What is the other way I can complete it? That was built by my father. So you see, there are many ways in which you can complete your sentences using either a relative pronoun or a relative adjective. So, or a relative adverb. So with this, my dear students, we come to the end of our next chapter. I hope it is clear to you as to how do we use an adjective clause and how do we frame an adjective clause. So I shall see you all now in my next lecture. Thank you.